Welcome to XO, where science meets heart at the kitchen table. I'm your host, Davey. In each episode, I narrate B-side tracks curated around a single theme: the why behind the ingredients, the swaps that make it better, and the stories that have been simmering for generations. No interviews, no guests, just me and you. This is EP2, the philosophy of the plate. Before we get into the kitchen, the swaps, the shortcuts, the moments where a simple question changes everything, I need to tell you what this episode is really about. It's not about recipes. It's about how you think about food. Because once you understand why an ingredient is in a dish, you stop following someone else's grocery list and start writing your own. Once you ask the right question at breakfast, you stop getting fooled by food that looks healthy but isn't doing the job. Once you understand why comfort food works and why it stops working, you stop needing to break up with it. And once you trust 3 ingredients to carry the weight, you realize most of what you thought was necessary was just clutter. 4 tracks. 1 plate. Let's think. Track 1. The remix equation. The recipe called for sour cream. I didn't have sour cream. I had Greek yogurt, half a lemon, and a bad attitude about going back to the store. So I squeezed the lemon into the yogurt, stirred it up, and used that instead. The dish was better. Not just fine. Better. More tangy, lighter, and I didn't feel like I needed a nap afterward. I stood there eating it straight from the pan thinking, what just happened? What happened was the simplest idea I've ever been slow to learn. Sour cream isn't in a recipe because it's sour cream. It's there because the dish needs something creamy and slightly acidic. Greek yogurt with lemon does the same job. Different ingredient, same role. That one swap changed how I think about every recipe I've ever read. Every ingredient in a dish is doing a job. It's providing fat, acid, sweetness, crunch, moisture, or structure. Sometimes more than one at the same time. Once you start seeing ingredients as roles instead of names, you stop being locked into someone else's grocery list. You start asking one question: what is this ingredient actually doing here? If the answer is, it's the acid, then you don't need that specific vinegar. You need an acid. Lemon works, lime works, apple cider vinegar works. Each one will take the dish somewhere slightly different, but the architecture stays the same. If the answer is, it's the crunch, then breadcrumbs aren't the only option. Crushed nuts, seeds, or even toasted coconut flakes will do the job, and probably do it with more flavor. I think about this with vinaigrettes a lot, because we make them constantly. A French vinaigrette is mustard, vinegar, and olive oil. That's it. Mustard is the emulsifier, the thing that holds the oil and acid together. Vinegar is the acid. Oil is the fat. One night I swapped the mustard for miso paste and the vinegar for lime juice. Kept the olive oil. Same structure, same ratio. But the dressing went from a Parisian bistro to a Tokyo izakaya in one move. The salad didn't know what hit it. I didn't invent a new recipe. I just changed 2 nouns and kept the verb. The swaps I get most excited about are the ones where the replacement does more than the original. Black beans and brownies is the one that blew my mind. Flour in a brownie is there for structure. It holds everything together. But flour doesn't bring much else to the table. It's doing one job. Black beans also provide structure, but they bring fiber, protein, and a fudgy density that flour can't touch. You're not removing something. You're upgrading the position. Same idea with cauliflower and mashed potatoes. The potato's job is starchy, creamy base. Cauliflower does that too, with more fiber and fewer blood sugar fireworks. Mix them 50-50, and most people can't tell the difference. The best swaps don't subtract. They promote from within. I'll be honest. For years, I followed recipes like they were legal documents. If it said green onions, I drove to the store for green onions. If it said tarragon and all I had was basil, I thought the dish would fail. It doesn't fail. It just becomes a different version of itself. A recipe isn't a house of cards. It's more like a band. You can swap the guitarist and still play the song. It might sound different, maybe even better. But the song doesn't fall apart because the personnel changed. The structure holds. It always holds. As long as you understand why each player is on stage. I ask myself this every time I cook now. Before I run to the store, before I abandon a recipe, before I convince myself I can't make something work. What job is this ingredient doing? And what else in my kitchen can do that job? 9 times out of 10, the answer's already in the fridge. That's not settling. That's freedom. Once you start seeing ingredients as roles instead of names, the questions get sharper. And sometimes the sharpest question is the one you ask before you even take a bite. Track 2. Breakfast or dessert? I'd seen the videos. You blend oats with banana, egg, and a little milk, pour it into a ramekin, and bake it. 20 minutes later, you've got something that rises like a souffle, has the crumb of a muffin, and looks like it belongs in a bakery window. I took one bite and thought, this is cake. Delicious cake, warm, soft, sweet cake that I was eating at 7:30 in the morning because the internet told me it was a healthy breakfast. By 10 a.m., I was starving. Not just hungry. That specific empty tank feeling where your body has already burned through everything you gave it and is now asking pointed questions about your choices. That's when I started wondering, is this actually breakfast? Or have we just figured out how to eat dessert before noon and feel virtuous about it? The magic of baked oats, the reason they taste like cake instead of oatmeal, is the blender. When you pulverize whole oats into a smooth batter, you're turning a slow-burning, complex carb into something much closer to flour. Whole oats take time to digest. Your body has to break through the structure of each flake, which means the energy releases gradually over hours. That's why a bowl of oatmeal keeps you full until lunch. Blended oats lose that structure. The surface area explodes. Your body processes the energy fast. A quick spike, a brief feeling of fullness, and then the crash. The 10 a.m. crash, the one I kept blaming on not sleeping well. It wasn't the sleep, it was the blender. It's thinner than you think, and it comes down to one thing. What's doing the heavy lifting? In a dessert, sugar is the star. Everything else is there to support the sweetness. In a breakfast, sweetness should be the background, a hint that makes the other flavors more interesting, not the main event. Most baked oat recipes I found online call for maple syrup, honey, chocolate chips, or brown sugar on top of the banana that's already in the batter. That's a lot of sweetness driving the bus first thing in the morning. A mashed banana on its own is plenty, so is a soft date blended into the batter. Cinnamon and vanilla can make something taste sweet without adding any sugar at all. The goal isn't to eliminate the pleasure. It's to make sure the pleasure isn't the only thing showing up. I didn't stop making baked oats. I just stopped making cake. First change, I stopped blending all the oats. I blend about half for the batter texture and leave the other half whole. That gives you the cake-like crumb on the outside with some actual structure on the inside, something for your body to work through slowly. Second change, I started adding things that do more than taste good. A spoonful of almond butter folded into the center, a scoop of collagen or protein powder in the batter, a handful of hemp seeds. These add fat and protein, which are the brakes on the blood sugar roller coaster. They're the reason you're still full at noon instead of raiding the pantry at 10. Third change, I stopped using sweetener beyond the banana. It took about a week for my taste buds to recalibrate, but once they did, the natural sweetness of the fruit and the warmth of the cinnamon was more than enough. The baked oats still rise. They still have that golden crumb. They still feel like a treat. But I'm not crashing by mid-morning anymore. This is the one I'm most proud of. Instead of chocolate chips or a Nutella swirl in the center, I freeze a tablespoon of almond butter into a small cube the night before. Drop it into the middle of the batter before it goes in the oven. It melts into this warm, gooey pocket that feels completely indulgent. Fat and protein, hidden in the center, doing the structural work while your brain thinks it's eating a lava cake. That's not deprivation. That's a smarter recipe, breakfast or dessert. Honestly, the same baked oat can be either one. The recipe doesn't decide. The ingredients do. If the sweetness is running the show, it's dessert. Enjoy it. Just call it what it is. If the structure's running the show, whole grains, protein, fat, fruit, it's breakfast. Real breakfast. The kind that carries you through a morning without a crash, a craving, or a trip back to the kitchen. Same ramekin, different intention. Knowing the difference between what food promises and what it delivers, that's where the real work begins. Because some foods don't just fool your taste buds. They fool your whole nervous system. Track 3. It's complicated. It was a Wednesday. Long day, nothing left in the tank. Didn't want to think about what to cook. So I made the mac and cheese, the real one, the one with 3 kinds of cheese and a full stick of butter and breadcrumbs on top. It was perfect at 9 p.m., warm, heavy, every bite a small vacation from the day. I ate 2 bowls. I felt held. By 10:30, I felt like I'd swallowed a brick. By Thursday morning, the fog was back, that heavy, sluggish, don't talk to me feeling where your body is technically awake, but hasn't fully committed to the idea. The mac and cheese told me exactly what I wanted to hear the night before, and then it ghosted me by morning. That's the relationship most of us have with comfort food. It's not love, it's a situationship. It's not weakness, it's chemistry. When you're stressed or exhausted, your brain wants the fastest path to calm. The combination of high starch and high fat creates a neurological shortcut. It triggers dopamine and opioid release, which effectively mutes the stress signal. Your body feels relief. Your shoulders drop. The day gets quieter, but the calm isn't real. What's actually happening is an insulin spike so steep that your parasympathetic nervous system kicks in and forces a slowdown. It's not peace. It's a crash dressed up as comfort. The food industry knows this. That's why comfort food is engineered around starch, fat, and salt in combinations that bypass your satiety signals. You don't stop eating because you're full. You stop because the bowl's empty. I'm not saying this to make anyone feel guilty. I'm saying it because understanding the mechanism is the first step toward changing the relationship without ending it. Here's the question I started asking. Does this meal make me feel good tomorrow? Not tonight. Tomorrow. Because comfort food that only works for the hour you're eating it isn't comfort. It's a distraction. Real comfort, the kind that actually serves you, should feel good in the moment and still feel good 12 hours later. That became my filter. Not, is this healthy? Not, is this clean? Just, will I feel okay in the morning? It eliminated some things. It kept others. And it made room for a third category. Meals that feel just as warm and heavy and satisfying, but are built differently underneath. You don't have to break up with comfort food. You just have to renegotiate. The mashed potatoes don't need to go. But mixing them 50-50 with roasted cauliflower or parsnips gives you the same creamy, buttery texture with more fiber, which means your blood sugar doesn't spike as hard and you don't wake up in a fog. The comfort stays. The crash leaves. The pasta can stay too, but a legume-based pasta holds sauce the same way and brings protein and fiber that white flour doesn't. You keep the bowl, you keep the sauce, you keep the ritual of twirling and eating something warm. The foundation just got stronger. The stew's already almost there. A slow-cooked one-pan stew with real broth, roasted vegetables, and warming spices, cinnamon, ginger, cumin, is comfort food that was never broken in the first place. It's warm, it's heavy, it's grounding, and it's built on ingredients your body actually knows what to do with. A squeeze of lemon at the end of any heavy comfort dish changes the whole experience. The acid cuts through the fat, resets your palate between bites, and keeps the meal from sitting on you like a weight. I still make mac and cheese sometimes, the real one, with the butter and the breadcrumbs. But it's not the default anymore. It's the occasion. The default became something different. A big bowl of roasted vegetables over rice with tahini and lemon, a slow-simmered soup with beans and greens, and enough garlic to fill the kitchen, a one-pan chicken with crispy skin, and whatever was left in the fridge. These meals don't promise the same instant hit. There's no dopamine firework at 9 p.m., but at 7 a.m. the next morning, when I'm clear and light and actually want breakfast, I know the meal did its job. That's the difference between a situationship and something real. The food that treats you well when you're not looking, that's comfort. Once you stop letting food manipulate you, something surprising happens. You need less of it, less complexity, less insurance, less clutter. Track 4. 3 things. Brussels sprouts, avocado oil, balsamic vinegar. That's it. I halved the sprouts, tossed them in oil, roasted them at 425 degrees Fahrenheit until the edges were black and the outer leaves were crispy, pulled them out and tossed them in balsamic while they were still screaming hot, so the vinegar traveled deep into the layers. No salt, no garlic, no butter, no herbs. 3 ingredients and a hot oven. The entire sheet pan, gone. I made more the next night. It shouldn't have been that good. I keep thinking I need more. More spices, more technique, more steps to make something worth eating. But that pan of sprouts was better than dishes I've spent an hour on. And it made me wonder how many of my complicated meals are complicated because they need to be, and how many are complicated because I don't trust the ingredients to carry the weight alone. Here's what I've learned about cooking with 3 ingredients. There's nowhere to hide. When a recipe has 15 components, a weak ingredient gets buried. Mediocre olive oil disappears in a complex sauce. Stale spices get masked by everything else in the pot. You can compensate, you can cover. With 3 ingredients, every single one is exposed. If the oil is rancid, you taste it. If the vinegar is cheap, the whole dish falls flat. If the vegetable isn't fresh, there's nothing to distract from it. That sounds like pressure, but it's actually freedom, because when every ingredient matters, you stop buying things out of habit and start paying attention to what's actually good. A great olive oil. A vinegar worth tasting on its own. Produce that doesn't need help. 3 ingredients isn't a limitation. It's a quality filter. I started testing this across different categories to see if the pattern held. It did. The pasta, legume pasta. grass-fed butter, nutritional yeast. Cook the pasta. Toss it in butter with a splash of pasta water until it's glossy. Sprinkle nutritional yeast over the top. It tastes like a rich, savory mac and cheese. The nutritional yeast provides that fermented, almost Parmesan flavor. The butter and starchy water create the sauce. 3 ingredients, and it's a full protein-heavy meal that takes 10 minutes. The vegetable, those Brussels sprouts. Oil, acid, heat. The Maillard reaction on the sprout. The balsamic soaking into the char. I've made this for people who claim they hate Brussels sprouts. They don't hate these. The dessert, 1 ripe avocado, raw cacao powder, maple syrup. Blend until smooth. The avocado disappears. No green taste, no avocado flavor, just a dense, fudgy mousse that tastes like dark chocolate pudding. I've served this without telling people what's in it, and the reaction is always the same. Disbelief, then a second scoop. Each one works because the 3 ingredients are doing different jobs. A base, a fat or acid, and a flavor. Structure, lubrication, character. When the rolls are filled, the dish is complete. Adding a 4th ingredient might make it different, but it won't make it better. I started asking myself before I cooked, can I make this with 3 things? Not always. Some dishes need complexity. A curry wants layers. A stew builds over time. I'm not suggesting every meal should be stripped to the bones, but the question itself is useful. Because most of the time, when I really look at a recipe, half the ingredients are redundant. They're there for insurance. Another herb in case the first one wasn't enough. Another fat on top of the fat that's already working. A sweetener and a second sweetener and a glaze. Removing the insurance is scary the first time, but when the dish still works, when it works better, because each remaining ingredient is doing its full job, you realize how much of cooking is clutter and how little is structure. The structure is usually 3 things. If it doesn't taste good with 3 ingredients, adding more won't fix it. It'll just make the problem harder to find. Start simple. If something is missing, add 1 thing. Taste. If it's still missing, add 1 more. But start with 3 and see what happens. You'll be surprised how often 3 is enough. That's EP2, The Philosophy of the Plate. 4 tracks. 1 idea running through all of them. Ask why the ingredient is there. Ask what breakfast is actually doing. Ask whether the comfort is real. And then ask if you even need the 4th thing, or if 3 is already enough. The plate doesn't lie. Once you learn to read it, everything gets simpler. Thank you for spending time with me. The Remixology app is where the remix continues. Recipes, swaps, and a little something new every Friday. Here's to health, happiness, and a remix that's uniquely yours.